Hello, welcome to ICUJP.
September 10, Sunday, from 1 o'clock at All Saints Pasadena. In person, we return from the darkness of COVID to the light of All Saints Pasadena. Join us for the annual George Regas Courageous Peacemaker Awards. This will be themed this year of housing is a human right. We've already identified several honorees, including our own Anthony Manousis and Jill Shook, All Saints itself and their homeless program. And we have in the works several other honorees and some surprises, some music. It's going to be a wonderful event. We hope you can personally attend September 10 on a Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Carol Francis, you are doing the reflection.
Yes. I'm reflecting on the glorious labor movement, which I am, and hopefully some of you are too, active members. Growing up, my view on the labor struggle was conflicted because Mom was anti-union and Dad faithfully read his machinist union paper. I was out of college by the time I got involved in the farm workers union struggle. When I told Mom about this, she told me she opposed unions because, quote, they're all corrupt, end of quote, accusing them of also being communists. Unfortunately, it did not occur to me then at that time to point out the double irony that she was refusing to support the UFW in their struggle against the Teamsters when it was their actual corruption that had turned her against unions, and that though she hated Joe McCarthy, there she was red baiting unions. And Dad, by the time I came to appreciate his progressive IAM union, I brought it up to him and he told me he no longer liked them because he thought they had all become communists. But of course, some unionists actually were. I learned about the important role of the Communist Party in organizing within unions against racism. And for all those things we tend to take for granted today. For example, unemployment insurance, which was opposed by the anti-communist AFL during the 30s and the Depression years, when a quarter of the workers in the country were unemployed. One of my favorite labor stories is about Louis Weinstock, a member of both the Communist Party and the Painters Union, who denied the right to leaflet at an AFL convention, leaped from the hotel balcony onto a chandelier and made his famous 5-minute speech about unemployment insurance, while the AFL president tried in vain to get him down. It was through my work as a full-time volunteer with the United Farmers that I learned 3 major concepts. Solidarity, I came to understand when the Rubber Workers Union joined us on a UFW picket line.
Okay, thank you.
Can somebody unmute, please? Mute.
Yeah, can everybody else go on mute? Thank you.
Workers' unity across racial lines, I learned from my short stint with the UFW in Compton. And though I wouldn't hear the term for several more decades, I learned about intersectionality from our showing the movie Salt of the Earth, which dramatically shows the intersection of labor, women's empowerment, and racial unity. After my 17 months as a full-time boycott organizer, I took a course at a community college in labor history, where I first heard of Labor's Untold Story, the book published by the Progressive United Electrical Union, UE. If you haven't read it, read it if you want to understand. Its only fault is that published in the 50s, it ends too soon. As a teacher, I was able to actively take part in the union movement as a member. I was the chapter chair during the 1989 UTLA strike. In my final pre-retirement years, I suffered from 2 consecutive principals who tried to get rid of me by claiming my teaching was not rigorous enough. A team sent out to observe me monthly told me at the end of the year that I had obviously been targeted, and they suggested early retirement. I took it, with the district mandating that I could never sub there. I appealed to my union. They set up a meeting where I submitted samples of my lesson, with some of the teachers asking me at the hearing permission to use my lessons in their classroom. The head of the group told me that my lessons were not only worthy of a 5th grade class that I developed them for, but that they'd be rigorous enough for a 7th grade class. My union got the district to drop the unsatisfactory designation, enabling me to sub in the district should I ever want to. But more importantly, they chipped away on the power of vindictive principals to attack teachers who are just trying to teach. I love my union. Later, I joined the National Writers Union, a chapter of UAW, to defend the rights of writers who write independently for online or print media. Now, if you're retired, as most of us are, having a day, excuse me, having a day off from not working anyway, is nothing special. But Labor Day is a celebration of workers, so I hope to have an ICUJP presence at our annual Labor Day market and rally on September 4th. Today, labor is rising up all around us. Before their sudden victory of the tentative agreement, I attended a Teamsters rally supporting their UPS workers who've been terribly oppressed. Seeing WGA and SEG after there in huge numbers supporting the UPS drivers was exhilarating. If you're depressed, it's your own damn fault for not being out on the picket line. About supporting the Teamsters, formerly the villains in the farm worker struggle. What it says is, if your union is corrupt, don't mourn, organize. Solidarity forever.
All right, Rick, I will hand it over to you to introduce our speaker.
Great. So I think a lot of people are familiar with Habitat for Humanity and its origins and its work all around the country. And basically, there's a real understanding of helping the unhoused in this country in any way you can. And what I think is amazing about Habitat is it does it in the most basic ways. You take a hammer and nails and make housing for people. It's the most basic thing that we've done in this country. Sometimes your fingers survive, sometimes they don't, like when I did it a few years ago. And it's amazing. It's really, I think, one of the true landmarks of if there's an American ideal of helping lift everybody else up, this is it. And I think that it's an example to many nonprofits and many organizations that want to do the work. So we are very glad to have Chris here. And as a short bio, because I can talk all day. Chris, as he mentioned before we started up, he grew up in Iowa, which I'm sure wasn't a culture shock at all coming to Hollywood. And he's got a Master of Arts in Political Science and History from Iowa State University. And since then, he's served as Habitat LA's Faith Relations Director. And he's connected over 100 diverse organizations and community groups of various traditions from across greater Los Angeles with Habitat's mission to put God's love into action to build homes, communities, and hope. And aside from doing the work in the US and Southern California, he's traveled to China, El Salvador, Paraguay, Malawi, South Africa, the Dominican Republic, and in Vietnam to build homes with Habitat for Humanity. So, Chris, thank you very much for coming, and the floor is yours.
Rick, thank you so much for that warm introduction, and to everyone. Just really honored to be here today. Just thank you for all that you do, building peace and justice and hope for so many here in our region and undoubtedly all over the world. So yeah, just so excited. I can't believe it's been 14 years. I remember I grew up Lutheran in the Lutheran church. That's my spiritual background. I was sitting in my church back in Iowa and just feeling more led to get up and find ways to live out my faith more on a week-to-week basis. And I'd gotten done with grad school and enjoyed working on some election campaigns in Iowa, but just really wanted to keep my faith at the center and find ways to live it out. And out of that, this Habitat position had opened up. Originally, it was through the AmeriCorps National Service Program. So that's how I originally got started with Habitat, coming out to do faith work in LA. I thought that we'll try that for a year, and then it turned into 2, and now it's up to 14. And along the way, I've been able to officially join Habitat staff and. As Rick mentioned, just work with some just incredibly inspiring faith communities around the greater Los Angeles region and all over the world as well. And so a bit about me, but just really excited today just to share some highlights of those 14 years in our interfaith work. Touch base a bit on the background and history of Habitat. But then, this really kind of focused more on, where we're at, right now, some of our newer initiatives that have started up, even over the last couple of years. And then, some opportunities coming up, projects and events and initiatives that we're taking a look at. And I'm really excited for the Q&A session as well. Having said that, along the way, if there's specific question, specific topic that I'm talking about, please feel free to put that in the chat, and I can definitely try to incorporate answering that as part of my presentation. So with that, I thought I would start this morning. We not every year, but a lot of the years in my time here, we've done an interfaith bill around the 9/11 Remembrance Day, and so I thought I would give you an idea of some of the interfaith work that we've done to date. I thought I would start by showing a short video highlighting one of our interfaith bills from 2014. So with that, I will share my screen and we'll take a look. Hope you enjoy.
A couple years ago, Habitat affiliates across the country started getting together more. They said, you know what, we need to do more to bring different faith traditions together. Not to change theological belief systems, but to really just rally together more about this common idea that we all share, that we can serve one another and we can help those that are most in need in our communities. And so today, September 11th, 2014, 13 years after the tragic events, we're coming back together on this build site here in Los Angeles and all across the country to serve, to help our communities grow and prosper, help families that are in need of affordable homes.
We learn from other faith traditions that it is the basic of our core that we want to help those that are maybe less fortunate. We all want to solve the home crisis in Los Angeles where people cannot afford decent housing. And from different faith traditions, we come to support Habitat, who addresses that. And this is part of their building homes in 112 communities and making a difference in our great city.
It's a really honor to be doing this, and we're hoping that today is just the beginning, that we can allow this program to continue to grow all across the country, and for that matter, around the world.
You know, it's believed that one of the greatest form of worship to the divine is through service to others. And today, being here and being with my fellow colleagues from various faith communities, the Catholic community, the Jewish community, the Hindu community, you know, it's really an illustration of how that concept of service unites us together. And by doing that, we're ultimately serving something that's so greater than us, that of the divine, as defined by each faith community on its own.
You know, in the eyes of the Creator, we're all His children. So I think it's just a matter of kind of shifting our perspective and seeing that we're all human beings and we all deserve like human dignity.
So this, for us, is a kind of act of worship, serving God within human beings.
A few moments ago, someone shared a passage from the Epistle of James, faith without works is dead. And this shows works puts our faith into action, I believe.
We're all human beings. We all want to, you know, do good things in this world, and it really doesn't matter what our faith is.
There's so many great faith traditions out there. We might not agree on everything, but we can agree to come together to serve, to help those in need, and to remember those that we lost.
So when you think about the tragedy of 9/11, and that you've taken that date and you've commemorated it with an opportunity for people of all faiths to come together in love and harmony, this is the greatest message that the world could ever have.
For me, I think it's really building hope. It's more than just building actual infrastructure. It's something certainly that's very tangible, but beyond that, it's really building hope. Not forgetting what happened, not forgetting our past, but really learning from that and recognizing that we can go beyond that and we can build a world that's defined by hope, a world that's defined by unity, and a world that's really defined by serving one another for the betterment of the whole society.
Especially see some of the Muslim faith and Jewish faiths and Christians and Buddhists and Hindus and everyone else working together rather than fragmented as the adherents, if you will, of 9/11 tried to make us. It's very hopeful.
Imagine, and this is a reality that can happen, what if Christians and Jews and Muslims all came together and were able to build houses in parts of the world where faith is tearing people apart? Imagine what we could do, you know, if we all said, all right, we might not agree on everything, but let's come together and start building houses. Possibilities for peace are possible and doable, and that's really where we want, you know, to continue to move and grow this interfaith initiative in the months and years to come.
One day in your life will make the difference in a family's life forever. So come and join us.
So yeah, it's amazing. I think, you know, that's almost been a decade ago, but, you know, just, you know, really just a testament to the power of faith, right? As we know, of how we can come together in peace and harmony on the build site and really help, you know, so many families have a hand up to be able to become a homeowner. And so love that video. And I also loved how though obviously September 11th, you know, over the last couple of decades, it's been a day of remembrance. But as my friend at the Hindu temple in Hollywood points out, that September 11th, 1893 was also, as many of you may know, the founding of the Parliament of the world's religions as well. And so I think it's a testament that, yes, there might be tragedy in association with that day, but there's also a lot of hope around that special day as well. So yeah, thanks for tuning into that. And yeah, now just kind of excited just to walk through some history of Habitat, like I mentioned, where we're at, where we're going. And again, feel free to pop in any questions in the chat as we go along here. So I'm gonna share my screen again. Yes, so as many of you know, Habitat, seeking to put God's love into action, bringing people together to build homes, communities, and hope. A lot of some great missions principles there that continue to guide our organization. That photo is our fearless leader Aaron and the 10 Habitat families that last November we completed a 10-home build down in Long Beach, our Millennium Home Development, representing the site where we began our second 1,000 homes here, Habitat homes here in the Los Angeles region. So it was a beautiful site, and love pictures like that. As Roche at the end of that video said, when you do give a day of your life, you're truly making a generational impact. And just to think that these 10 families, most recently that we completed homes for in Long Beach, will now have a beautiful neighborhood to grow and thrive in is always such a blessing to think about. Here's where we're currently at around the world, 70 countries, hopefully more to come in the decades ahead. Yeah, I always love thinking about, every day people getting up all over the world and going out in their communities and coming together to help build and repair homes. And I also love that, faith continues to be, such an important part of Habitat's work, especially a couple wonderful stories of, around the world. I love it when maybe there's a region where faith is, as I mentioned in the video, pulling people apart, but Habitat can be used to help bring folks together. So I think of in the 1990s in Northern Ireland, when Catholics and Protestants, were trying to figure out a peace process, and they utilized Habitat as a way to come together to build, and that helped to move things along towards the peace agreement in their country, which I think is beautiful. Same thing in India. There's been villages where Hindus and Muslims are trying to better figure out how to come together and live more in harmony, and been able to utilize Habitat as a way to build together. So just and more stories like that as well. Any chance I have to go abroad. I've missed it the last couple of years traveling abroad because of the pandemic, but I think it sounds like next year we're going to relaunch our Global Village program. But yeah, fun to connect what we're doing here in Los Angeles around the world. Where we came from, just a bit on the history. Anthony, special shout out to you and Jill. You are my new hero and heroine over the last couple of years. I've done this, as I said, 14 years, and you feel like you're doing God's work. But when I had the chance to connect with Jill a couple of years ago and really dig into her amazing dissertation on the theology of housing, just really tracing, using scripture to trace what, the importance of, God calling us to use land wisely and justly, and, create, housing that is, equitable and fair for all of those, and the concepts of Jubilee and others. I've just been so grateful for that, and really appreciate the incredible work that you do at making housing happen. So I feel like that from scripture, and all scriptures, I think for that matter, regardless of the faith tradition, all talk about, coming together to serve those that, are most in need in various ways. And so that's originally, way back, where have the foundations of Habitat. And then, I'm sure several of you have heard of, Koinonia Farms, and the Cotton Patch Gospels, out of, with Clarence Jordan in the 20th century, bringing different backgrounds, different races together in South Georgia to at first farmland, which caused a lot of uproar. But he stuck with it as a testament to his Christian faith. And along the way, the original founder of Habitat, Millard Fuller, arrived in South Georgia in the 1970s. With his wife, who had recently gone to New York City. They had become millionaires by the time they were 30, but they were, really working through some things in their marriage, and kind of as an effort to save it, they came to Koinonia Farms and worked with Clarence, and that reconnected them, and out of that, Habitat was founded. Started to build homes as part of their missions experience too, and spread across Georgia, and went over to Africa, and came back and took off, especially when the blessing of President Carter and his wife Rosalind following their presidency, when they were able to come in and do a yearly build project somewhere around the country or around the world. They just have been a godsend for Habitat. I had the true honor to build with the Carters in 2018 in Indiana. I think he was able to, his last project was 2019 in Tennessee, I believe. I'm sure they would have kept going, but the pandemic slowed them down. And as many of you know, he has entered hospice care within the last year, so we're definitely keeping him in our prayers. But the Carters have forever, transformed the mission of Habitat, and we're really grateful for that. Habitat, we started in, the Christian tradition, and, continued to be an ecumenical Christian housing ministry. But along the way, and especially over the last decade, the importance, the inspiration of really focusing more on interfaith work has taken off like never before. And I've been honored to sit on kind of the National Interfaith Task Force over the last decade with Habitat, just working with different cities, others from cities to small towns around the country to encourage every Habitat chapter to do some sort of interfaith work. In fact, I will quickly stop this and go to another one and just kind of take you through something that we've been doing with our interfaith. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so I just mentioned our Interfaith Task Force, and this is available on our website as well. But yeah, we really just really enjoyed as a interfaith community putting this together. Initially, the focus was on kind of North America, and really around most of the Habitat chapters are in the United States, so we really wanted to start there. But now that that's happened, I know we really want to grow this more around the world too. There's an introduction from our CEO, and then I can just show you the table of contents, and if you're interested in reading more, earlier. But yeah, just some really great, ideas about, developing an interfaith community within Habitat, which has been great to, speak with a lot of the interfaith councils and all of our great rich faith traditions around Los Angeles, and, bring ideas together around how we can serve, as a faith community. Then how can we live that out? Faith in action, various ideas about that. And then how can we sustain this for the long haul? And I think that third part, I think, is where we're really at within Los Angeles right now. We have, made a lot of great connections with the interfaith community. We've done some faith in action, and we can always build on that. And now I think we're really focused on how can we, sustain this, moving forward. So it's again, all I can just kind of, there's some really great information there. Can definitely make sure you guys get that link. At some point, I wanted to share that. All right, let's see how quick I can get back to my. So yeah, Interfaith Task Force, ongoing, continuing to grow, and would invite everyone on this part of this Zoom session today to think about if there's ways that we can serve together in the work that you're doing. I think that would be just an amazing blessing, and there's just so much experience and ideas on this Zoom session. I think could really continue to add to the work that we're doing within our faith traditions and habitat here around the greater Los Angeles region. There's President Carter and Erin, our president and CEO, Fearless Leaders. Some of you may know her. Love her story. She was helping to build a church in the Philippines in the early 90s. Had heard about Habitat and committed, when she got back to LA I want to get involved. And so she started volunteering. 1998, she went to the board and said, we're just doing 1 or 2 homes a year. We're LA. We need to do more than that. So the board looked at her and said, you're right, Erin. What are you going to do about that? And she said, well, maybe I'll become our first official employee. And so now, 25 years later, Erin and many other community leaders, we've become one of the largest Habitat chapters in the country. As you can see, we serve about 85% of Los Angeles County. Still have sister chapters, as some of you may know, in the San Gabriel and the Pomona valleys, as well as other Habitat chapters throughout Southern California. But yeah, we really pride ourselves on being one of the leading Habitat chapters, and served over 1,200 families now with some sort of housing assistance, during that time. Just kind of feel like we're getting started. Recently expanded into the San Fernando, Santa Clarita, and Antelope valleys. I was actually just up in Lancaster yesterday. It was warm up there, but excited about taking what we've done kind of in the southern part of the county and then bringing it up north in the years ahead as well. All those dots are all of those the 1,200 projects we've completed, and a lot of them are on top of each other. But yeah, as you can see, a lot of work over the years. A few different types of projects. The red dots are all of the new homes. Some have been single homes. Some have been multi housing developments. We've also done a number of rehabs over the years, especially following the housing crisis of 2008, 2010. We purchased about 120 homes that had been foreclosed in Long Beach, Linwood, and Southgate, and did a lot of rehabilitation of those homes, and then we're able to get more Habitat families into them. So a lot of the blue dots represent that initiative during those few years, and then home repair as well. I'll get a little bit more into this later on, but yeah, just being able to go in and help seniors, veterans, disabled families, if they may perhaps lived in their home for decades, and putting on a new roof or a new coat of paint or some other basic repairs would help them to stay in their homes longer. That is a program that took off during the second Carter build back in 2007 and has hung around ever since. Just some of the impact statements that Habitat has had on people's lives over the years. Worldwide, over 35 million people served. I'd love to think about the parable of planting a seed and seeing where it grows, and it's incredible what Millard and Linda Fuller did back in 1976, planting those seeds, and now how that's taken off to help millions around the world. Mortgage affordability. I'm sure many of you may know this already, but I think the beauty of the Habitat program is really using faith-based principles of charging no more than a third of a family's income towards their 30-year mortgage payment. Has just been an initiative that has worked well. Those 1,200 homes that we completed, less than half of 1% have defaulted. And I think, so much of that, has to do with those principles of not charging a lot of interest, building the homes, decently, but not, anything massive, and rallying the community together to make them happen, has all helped create a really great program. Beyond the homes that we build, we've also been able to work with the state and other areas over the years to help families that maybe just need some down payment assistance and mortgage funding. So we're able to help families on those levels as well. And I think one of the areas I am just during the pandemic specifically been able to think more about, and our whole Habitat team around the country has as well. It's just not only Habitat, I think for decades has helped to economically help close the gap and help those that are most in need. But I think from a learning more about redlining and other policies of the past that really discriminated against different races and especially for people and families of color, how that has really impacted the setup of our cities today, not only here in Los Angeles but around the country. And so I think Habitat, we've been every time with 85% of our families in California being families of color that are moving into them. I think we are, we've always been helping along that way, but now that we've educated ourselves more through our DEI initiative, and being able to bridge bridge that gap to help build a cities where the impact of the racial discrimination policies of the past, we can help to alleviate those as well. So I'm really excited about that initiative that's helping move Habitat forward into the next generation as well. Mentioned a couple of our programs already. New home construction, I think, probably is what Habitat is most well known for. Working with the city or the county, typically. Hopefully, more faith communities as well in the years ahead to acquire land to build on, and then raising the resources from businesses, faith partners, individuals, others, and then bringing volunteers out to build the homes. It's the process, especially here in Los Angeles County, but we stick with it, and pretty much all parts of the county we've been able to do at least some sort of new construction project over the years. So that's probably our most well-known program. And as I mentioned, home repair as well, continuing to repair homes. We do about 100 home repair projects a year now at Habitat LA, bringing resources to, again, families that have lived in their homes perhaps for decades but just can't afford the repairs, and so we really do help them stay in their homes longer as a result. Beyond just the building aspect, neighborhood revitalization has really taken off as well with Habitat across the country over the last several years. The idea being, yes, we can come in and build and repair homes, but what more can we do to really, bring the whole community together? So, for instance, the Washington neighborhood in Long Beach, we've been there many years now, and it's not only been about building and repairing homes, but also, working with the middle school right across the street, and asking how can we help the students, have safety when they cross streets or do back to school drives. How can we work with the other nonprofits in Long Beach that are right next door to the build site, to help build up the community? How can we create specifically a neighborhood council, in essence, where regular meetings are being had and people coming together discussing what they want to see happen within their neighborhood, really empowering those that are living in that community, so that when Habitat leaves, there's a stable foundation for continuing to thrive and grow as a neighborhood. During the pandemic, we did a really large COVID-19 relief fund, helped with everything from food to rental assistance to if students needed a laptop because they were at home, but having to go to school at home, and that things like that. Served a lot of families that initiative as well. Unfortunately, wildfires have become pretty common out here in the Los Angeles region, and so we've developed a disaster relief initiative over the last several years as well, helping again connect families with resources as they rebuild. In particularly, there's a mobile home park out in Seminole Springs, the Agora Hills area, that we've been able to help a lot of families recover out there, again connecting with resources or just providing basic repairs out there too. Our restores, many of you might know, just become a real blessing and an incredible new part of Habitat since I think 2004. Wow, 20 years coming up for our stores, but they are like Home Depot thrift stores. We'd always get calls, people wanting to donate furniture, appliances for our families that were moving into our homes, and we couldn't always accept them. But then we did start to think, well, maybe if we picked up the items and put them in a store and sold them at really affordable prices, it could help be open to the general public and specifically help families that maybe can't afford brand new furniture or other household goods, help them to thrive even more, and help Habitat to continue to build more homes in the process, another revenue source. So restores are great. There's many in LA County. Habitat LA, we have stores in Bellflower, Torrance, and LA at Olympic and La Brea, and hopefully a couple more to come over the next couple of years too. And then our last program, Pathways to Home Ownership, is really education is always so key. And so we can only serve so many families at a time building them homes, but we can educate dozens, hundreds of families over the years that are interested in learning about the processes of what it takes to own a home, whether it's 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years out. Having educational opportunities for families and Pathways is another great, exciting initiative. So there's that. Touched on a bit of this, but just kind of the model and the process of Habitat, from initially acquiring the land to handing over the keys to the family initially. As Aaron says, there's 1,000 things that have to happen with each new development. So we always ask for prayers and blessings and good thoughts, for those 1,000 things to come together. They always do, and we stick with it. Sometimes it can come together quickly. Sometimes it can take multiple years, maybe even a decade on some projects. But we definitely, we stick with them. Always, pre-development. My 2 favorite days on Habitat, obviously my favorite day is when you hand the keys over to the family, and they're able to move into their home. My second favorite day, I think, is when we're able to get out there and just turn that first, shovel of dirt and really start to lay the foundations, because there's always a lot of pre-development work that goes into that process. But it is amazing, and really, I think a testament of faith that these homes get built. So there is little information on that process. I love this, housing continuum model as well, and kind of where Habitat fits, into that. More and more the importance. There's so many great nonprofits, community leaders out there doing so much great work for housing, and I think the more we can work together as housing leaders and organizations, I just think the more quickly we're going to be able to serve more that are in need. Habitat has been focused on the lower income families, as many of you may know, over the years, that just need that bit of help to be able to afford to own their home. And ownership, being such a key into helping lift people out of poverty. And so we're kind of in that middle to kind of the end of the housing spectrum there. But working more and more with there's an organization called The Whole Child based in Whittier. So we have a development in Santa Fe Springs coming up where half of it is going to be transitional housing, helping those that are been unhoused and recently and continue to make their way through the process and become have a more stable place to live. And then the second half of that project will be traditional habitat homes. So you kind of see the whole spectrum of housing in one neighborhood. So we're really excited about that. But yeah, it kind of gives you an idea of, again, the housing continuum and where habitat fits in the model. So that's a bit of the background and the history of habitat. So you might be curious, all right, well, what's going on, Chris? What's happening nowadays in the greater LA service area? As I mentioned, super excited. We've been in Long Beach. That was where our very first home was built back in 1990, but we're literally weeks away from breaking ground. It'll be our largest development yet. That I have 44 here listed. The largest development, 36 of those homes will be at 14th and Locust and Long Beach. So we're really excited about that. There'll be like 4 rows of like nine townhouses per row on that site. So that will be a great initiative that we'll be working on for the next couple of years. And then we just received another piece of land in partnership with the city to do 8 more homes down in Long Beach. So we'll be in Long Beach for a bit. Wrapping up 8 homes at El Segundo in Maine, in Los Angeles, and then starting another 8 on Holmes Avenue, which is kind of Gage and 63rd Street. That'll be starting this fall. A little more on that in a minute. And then, as I mentioned, Lancaster. This is the empty lot in Lancaster that will be starting 8 units with our Blitz build coming up. We have several major construction companies come together every other year and build 3 to 4 homes in 6 to 8 weeks. So that'll be coming up in Lancaster. A lot more coming up in Lancaster too. And over the next 12 months, we'll again do probably over 100 home repairs as well. So we're excited about our projects coming up. Also have several events as well. Every November, we do a big veterans initiative, repair several homes for veterans. So that'll be happening. Have our annual gala in the spring of every year. So our builders ball will be coming up, and love to have you join us for that too, if you're interested. And then another one of our favorites, Power Women, Power Tools, coming up spring of 2024. That's Maria Shriver. Got that one going for us back in 2005, and ever since it's been just one of our favorite days out of the year. So that'll be coming up. But my favorite one that that's still forming, but I'm really excited to tell everybody about is I'll just go. We are been in conversation with our friends up in Habitat Sacramento, and they've been telling us that the last several years they've done an interfaith build around World Faith Harmony Week, which is designated by the UN during the first week of February. And so we are, again, still finalizing the details, but mark your calendars for February 2nd and 3rd. We're going to be working on 8 homes, that second South Los Angeles development that I mentioned. And just, I think it's going to be a great opportunity coming out of the pandemic to re-engage a lot of our great, faith, spiritual leaders from around the region and bring them together for a couple of days to build. And so every one of you is welcome to be part of that, whether it be, coming to the site or in the planning, stages as well. I'd love to just have your feedback and ideas how we can make this the best interfaith build yet. So really excited about how this is coming too. Let's see what else. And with that too, I think always get questions on different ways that people can support and be involved with Habitat. Again, first and foremost, always ask for prayers, good thoughts, blessings. So much has to come together to make these projects possible. And so those really, we know those make an impact. You may know families or individuals. It doesn't have to, we serve single people as well who receive our homes. and spreading the word within your networks about the various projects that Habitat has going on. It's how we find a lot of our home buyers are through our outreach with our faith community. So there's that opportunity. Spreading the word about our initiatives, our programs, educating about affordable housing, as many of you are doing already. But if there's ways that we can collaborate together and reach more within our region, I think it certainly makes an incredible impact. Like any, fundraising is always an ongoing thing, and we're always getting creative and finding new ways to raise funds to support all of the builds going on. Doesn't have to be like a house or a neighborhood sponsor. Every bit helps to add adds up and get these homes completed. We love our faith partners. I think some of we love food, right? And so just bringing food and snacks out to our volunteers at our sites, another great way that our faith leaders have been involved. Advocacy, our initiatives are really growing here, especially with so much going on, housing wise at the state level and even the federal level over the last several years. We do an annual event called Habitat on the Hill out in Washington. Another one called Habitat California up in Sacramento, where we go and advocate with our elected officials. So that's another option too. And then, as I mentioned, just our interfaith work has been, growing over the last decade, but I feel like we're just on the tip of the iceberg. And so just needing even more, help, ideas, how we can keep moving our interfaith work and our interfaith task force at Habitat LA forward is another way to consider supporting our initiatives too. With that, I have my contact info there, and I'll pull that back up. But I thought before I take questions, I did want to show another, and again, so excited for questions, but I did want to show one more quick video. Let me just pull that up real quick here. I just thought that you'd be interested in hearing from a couple of our partner home buyers who have been in their homes for over a decade now. Betty, who is my very first family that I served, and another family in Linwood that we completed a home for as well. I will pull that up and then get your questions ready, because after the video, I will be ready to answer them. All right.
It's me by myself doing this, taking this giant leap into my future. Like for the next 30, 40 years, it was a little scary because, again, like I said, it was me. I'm doing it like, okay, there's nothing written that says single mothers can't do it. Obviously, I was there. I was signing the paperwork, but there's no one to fall back on. You know what I mean?
As a single parent, being mom and dad all at once, being a team mom in every sport you can think of, being a classroom parent. One of the reasons why I had to stay in Downey was because my two older boys are high-functioning autistic boys. My oldest, Joshua, he didn't speak until he was in 3rd grade. And if you know anything about autism, they don't like change. They will suffer.
I had been on my own pretty young since I had my first son, Alex. I had him when I was 16. I was working 2 jobs. My mornings started at 5:30, and they didn't end till 6 or 6:30.
Habitat for Humanity came to my life in one of the most dire moments. 2007, 2008, it was creeping up on us. My boss calls me one day and she says, I have some really bad news. I'm gonna have to lay you off. I needed to do something. And one of the things that I was considering doing was separating my family. Sometimes it's out of your control. I was swimming as hard as I could and I was still sinking. And the lifesaver was Habitat.
Have a lot of things that go on in life. I'd say all of them hit me at at some point as a single mother. But I always knew that I wanted to have a steady home. I never took my eye off the prize. You know, in the back of my mind, I knew it was something that I was gonna have.
Habitat for Humanity doesn't see you as an unemployed single household with 3 kids. You'll never qualify. You know, they see you with these other glasses that are rosy, and they say, hardworking woman, willing to put in the work. We're gonna give her a chance. One of the most beautiful parts of having the house built is that everybody's a volunteer.
Oh, I couldn't wait to get here every Saturday.
We met a lot of people.
We've seen people come and go that work through Habitat, that volunteer through Habitat, and you're not gonna get that just typically purchasing a house.
Because when you're working in a Habitat project, if you're rich, if you're poor, it doesn't matter where you come from, what religion you're from, nothing.
Yeah, it's been a while since I met Betty.
They were working on a 10 townhouse build in Linwood, and I ended up working on those houses too.
When she was over here volunteering, and I remember looking at her and thinking, wow, she's strong. You know, we don't always tell people what we're thinking, and we should be better with that, but especially if it's something positive. And if they've inspired you, we should let them know. But yeah, with Betty's situation, I was like, wow, she's strong. She's a strong woman and a strong mother.
What it's giving families is the opportunity to have a safe place, a place where they can grow, a place where they can have happy memories, where they're going to be able to call their own without the uncertainty of not being able to provide for their family.
You see a lot of stuff that goes on the news. You know, just me personally knowing friends that had to leave their apartment and thought that they were going to be homeless in the pandemic, family members that have to go on unemployment. It's such a blessing to have this right now. And then the fact that Donovan is doing online schooling, he has his own room. So even now as we're doing this interview, he's upstairs in his room and he's doing his little classes online.
By the way, that kid that did not speak, he is an aviation mechanic for the Navy.
It meant a lot. You know, my kids, well, Alex was old enough to know, you know what I mean, and how this would benefit us. It was something stable for me. It was very satisfying to know that all the hard work, you know, I sacrificed a lot, but when you raise good kids like I have, it doesn't even feel like a sacrifice.
When you're building, you're seeing one family. It's not one family. It's grandma, it's grandpa, it's nieces and nephews and everything. It's not just one family, it's generational. And you're helping not just me, but you're helping my kids, and you're helping their kids, and on and on and on.
Yeah, it never gets old. You know, it's affordable housing is a lot of work and a lot of effort, but when you hand those keys over to the families that you know you're forever making a generational impact for, it's always worth it and beyond. And you give a lot to help develop housing, and you get so much more back in return, whatever area you're in. I'm sure you all find that as well. So with that, thank you for letting me kind of go all over and some videos and back and forth and some ways to get involved. And yeah, just excited to, you know, spend the next little bit here and answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you so much. It's really moving.
The way we normally do this, just because it's easier that way, is people who have questions, they put their hand up in the chat, and then we kind of call upon them centrally. But since nobody's done that yet, can I ask the first question? You had some incredible examples, but they were all around LA. Do you do anything actually in Los Angeles? I mean, the city itself.
Yep. A lot of our home repairs rows have been in the city, so we're still doing that. You're right. A lot of our new developments have not been in Los Angeles City. We'd love to, keep doing more of that, and hopefully we can keep finding ways to do more in the actual city of Los Angeles. But yeah, it's acquiring land within the city has just been a little bit more, taken a little bit more effort over the years, and we've done some great projects, but want to do more for sure, and are always open to that if we're able to work with city council or housing officials within the city of Los Angeles more. We'd love to get more projects going within the city for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sophia has her hand up, and you could also introduce yourself, Sophia.
Hi, my name is Sofia Quinones. I'm with the East LA Boyle Heights Coalition. And so good morning to you. I'm also going to be seeking office in 2024. And
nice.
I want to talk to you, which we've been having, we're going to try and coordinate like a housing summit, because I think the conversation has to be changed to public housing. Affordable housing is just the privatization of housing. And we can't build any more housing in the city because we're just outpriced. And anything that goes up gentrifies. And that's what we've come to, our nation across. I mean, it's people who are privatizing housing. We can't work we can't live where we work. And is there anything that Habitat can do to demand this? Because we're going to have a sunset of 30,000 affordable housing units that are the sunset clause is over, right? So this is what they do to just keep kicking it down the road with affordable housing projects, where eventually, you're going to get kicked out and they're going to go market rate, because we've lost public housing, like William Mead, which is a great example. We need public housing. We have to stop saying affordable housing because we're being priced out. And so I believe that the faith-based communities can raise that and bring it to the attention of the federal government, so that we can also talk about the people that are doing the good work and not privatizing it to make money off of our basic human right.
Sophia, thank you so much for sharing that, and for your passion for wanting to create a fair, just housing throughout our region. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I think Habitat, when we first got started, our original fund, they wanted to kind of stay away from this whole idea of advocacy and working alongside government leaders. And then about 15 years ago, we started to say, okay, no, we need to do more, both at the city, the state, and the federal level. And it's a big, steep uphill climb. But I think it's starting to pay off. We were able to receive over the last 2 years, $150 million in the state budget for affordable housing for ownership for the first time. So that was a huge win for us. But I hear there's a lot more to do, and I think totally agree. It's often as again, back to you, Anthony and Jill, you've really inspired, just the whole idea of faith advocacy coming together through making housing happen. And I think, Habitat wants to continue to do more in that arena, and are really open to, helping to make that happen. Because you're right. There's a crisis right now when it comes to housing.
You go first.
No
It's
problem.
hidden in the white behind it. That's why.
Oh yeah. It's I'll change my hand to purple or something. Chris, thank you very much for the presentation. What I thought was very interesting is in your video too. Both of those houses that those ladies moved into, they both had solar panels, which was great. I'm really glad to see that kind of renewable energy is part of what the Habitat's thinking and building. I neglected when I introduced you to let you know exactly what kind of prompted me to send you an email. It was I think talking to Steve a few months ago. I talked about how my folks' house in Pico Rivera, Habitat was helping refit for both of them because they're both mobility hampered, right? My dad's in a wheelchair. My mom gets around with a walker. And so we widened doorways and stuff like that. And it was great to have their help and support in doing it. And they're able to stay in their own house that they've had for over 55, 60 years now. So, we're able to help keep them, active and happy and as long as the Dodgers win, they're fine. So I just wanted to say that their Habitat's doing a lot of work all over the place, and just I wanted to relay that personal thank you as well.
You're so welcome, Rick. I'm so glad that they reached out and we were able to assist them a bit. That's wonderful.
Steve?
Thank you, Chris, so much. I have kind of two clusters of questions, and I may go back around on the list so we hear from others. My first is just very practical. I'm trying to get my mind out of how it works. So how do you screen and choose your families and individuals? How do people come to your attention, and how do you go about selecting them and ensuring that you're not discriminating and playing favorites in any way? Then is there a mortgage? Does this family are they living in these homes free for 30 years? How financially does it happen over time? And then I'll save this other group of questions for another round.
Great questions. Really appreciate. I'm gonna answer, and I'm also gonna put a link in the chat here to so even after we're done here, you have even additional info. But yeah, Habitat always been about being a hand up, not a handout organization. So our families for our new homes right now are making or have few requirements, 50 to 80% area median income. They have to have a decent credit. It's a first-time home buyer program, and they you do have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident to qualify. Outreach wise, it's not like we have a list of 500 people, families, and all right, you're number 10 on the list, so you'll get the 10. Each new development we do an outreach session for, where we work with area faith partners, community organizations, have some initial sessions so people understand the qualifications. If they feel like they qualify, they can apply. We get, depending on the site, sometimes we'll get a lot of applications. Other times we'll have, not quite as many. And so we will, narrow it down as best we can. Some of them, just some of the families that apply just, don't end up meeting the qualifications. But we'll if it's a 10 house site, maybe we'll be able to narrow it down to 25 applications. And then we have a home buyer selection committee that's part of our board of directors that goes ahead and makes the final decision of who's selected. They then some of our favorite Zoom meetings during the pandemic were surprising, our families with the homes that they've been selected. So we've been doing the surprise announcements on Zoom lately. We'd love to have you join us for one of those at some point. And then, they will put in hundreds of hours of sweat equity, as we call it, as their down payment on their home. They will take a series of classes before they move in. And then once the construction's completed and we close escrow, they pay back a 30-year mortgage that's not more than a third of their income. So that basically means if it's a $600,000 market home, in the region, then they'll pay back about a third of that over the course of 30 years. The rest is held on what we call like a soft second mortgage, where Habitat or another one of our lenders is holding that. That's not due unless very rare, but sometimes a family needs to move out or something like that. But that wouldn't be due unless they needed to move out. And so it's an incredible opportunity. It frees up a lot of resources for families to invest in their kids' education and other things that they need to better their lives. And as I mentioned, less than half of 1% default rate on our new homes over the years at Habitat LA. So it's a process that's working well. So does that answer your question, Steve?
Just a quick follow-up. How is the down payment handled?
Yeah, so about a 2% down payment, direct cash, and then the other we look at the sweat equity hours as the main part of the down payment. And so again, especially in this day and age when you're encouraged to come up with 20% on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a home, it's a game changer for a lot of families just to have to put 2% down.
And over the course of the 30 years, the family or individual pays a third of that total cost.
Exactly.
So it's underwritten. 2/3 is underwritten through Habitat.
Correct. Yep.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Ruby?
You know what? I remember you, Chris. And I was thinking that this is way back, I don't know, 1990s or so. And all I could do was just stay in the prayer. And you have done so much work. And I was wondering is Mayor Bass, is she working with you at all for any of these projects and everything? Because she was, interested in homeless and everything way back then too. Yeah. And, we were all working together as a group, but you just stepped out. And I think this started somewhere in Georgia or somewhere else earlier. And you brought all this vision and everything that you showed us on these. I mean, you've made it reality. And so I'm still keeping you in prayer, but now I know where to get you. I got your phone number.
Dr. Ruby, that means so much. We really, really appreciate that. And keep those prayers coming because we continue to need them. We love Mayor Bass. She's been, we worked with her a lot in, her role, her previous one when she was in the state legislature and member of Congress. And we're hoping to do even more. And now that she's mayor as well. I think, there, in terms of, government resources, there's been a lot of attention and needed for those that are unhoused, and transitional housing, really important. Habitat, I think, has been one of the things we've been advocating for over the last decade, is that a part of, government assistance needs to be focused on affordable ownership opportunities as well. And that, again, being able to not only have a decent place to live, but to be able to build that generational wealth because of the ownership opportunity is critical and important. And so our hope is that we can continue to work with the mayor's office and other elected officials as well to move that part of one of the housing solutions that's needed forward in the years ahead.
Thank you. Dick Bunce, I think you were next.
Okay. Yeah, I'm out in Pomona, and you've got some good folks out here, and we appreciate that. And I used to serve on the planning commission here, and we, like in so many communities, there are those of us who have been kind of beating back on the sacrosanct R1 zoning and single family kind of thing, and finding multiple complex, duplex, triplex, condo, apartment options and so forth. And it looks like Habitat is moving somewhat in that direction as well. Can you talk about that, and to what degree are you ready to kind of throw single family housing over the cliff and do stuff that's that houses a lot more people in limited space?
Yeah, great question, Rick. And you're right. I think the first several decades of Habitat, here in LA, it was really great. We've got a little piece of land here we can build a house on, or, oh, good, we got another little piece here we can do 2 or maybe 3, and that was the bulk of our things. And I'll say too that any piece of land is a gift, and so we would still likely accept smaller parcels. But yeah, I think we're moving into an era because the need is so great. And if we can find parcels where we can dream a little bit bigger and build more units, even if it means going a little bit more vertical, or just designing the project so that it's it still fits with the vision of the community, but that ultimately more people are able to be served. That is definitely, I think, you look at our pipeline now, and we've got as I mentioned, the big 36 unit in Long Beach coming up. Lancaster, I mentioned the 8 units, but we actually received land. We're going to be able to do 78 units up in Lancaster over the next several years. We've got a development in Southgate and Lakewood and Santa Fe Springs that I meant, that are all 10 or 15 units or more that we're going to be able to build. And so I think with hundreds of thousands of units that are needed in California alone, yes, one at a time, throwing one fish at a time back into the ocean is great. But if we can throw 10 or 15 more and serve more families through larger developments, that's definitely where Habitat would like to go in the years ahead.
And just a quick follow-up. The bigger it gets, does that tend to draw more opposition from local folks?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think, because you're right. There's the not in my backyard definitely exists. One of the things I've loved about Habitat is the time we take literally to go knock on every neighbor's door, introduce ourselves, who we are. Property taxes are not going to go up. Home values are not going to go down because Habitat is coming to the neighborhood. Once we explain it, I'm thinking, like our Culver City build, which was such a gift to be able to do 10 homes on the west side from 2018, 2019. We got some pushback initially, but over the course of the time there, by the end, the whole neighborhood is so excited and grateful for the homes that were built there, and so that was really neat to see. And I think you're probably right. The larger development, there's that much more opportunity for pushback. But just like we've done on some of our 2 to 10 unit builds, we'll just do that much more effort and energy to educate and help people understand about what this is going to bring to the community moving forward.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you.
Anthony.
Chris, I want to thank you again for all that you do. It was really amazing to see how Habitat has really grown and evolved in so many ways, with the advocacy and the other services that are being provided. And the idea that it's not just individuals, but you're talking about the community as well. So I want to share a little historical background, and then I want to ask a question. So one of the precursors to Habitat that influenced Millard Fuller was self-help enterprises here in California. And farm workers in the 60s were living in like shacks, and the American Friends Service Committee was very concerned about them, listened to their concerns, and was able to come up with a model where like 10 or 12 families would build homes together, and they would, all work together to build the framing, the roof, the plumbing, and everything else. And this not only built homes, it built community and equipped these farm workers with skills, like some of them became electricians or roofers or whatever. So it was a very successful model, and it eventually, Self-Help Enterprise was able to get the same kind of loans that farm owners had for farm workers to build these homes. So that's just a precursor. Millard Fuller saw that and it influenced him. And that, is I think what you're talking about now is not just individual homes, but how do you create more community development? So in reference to what Sophia said, preservation of existing affordable housing is critically important. And we've had a couple of instances where the covenants have expired here in Pasadena, and we've been able to make sure that that covenant is picked up by another affordable housing developer and extended another 50 years. So it's really important for the government to provide funding and support to make sure that whenever affordable housing covenants expire, there's an opportunity for them to be renewed. And I also support social housing, although record of government running housing has not been very good. But now my question. So with Habitat homes, what happens when they are sold? Is there a way to ensure their affordability? That's basically my question. Okay.
Yeah. No, Anthony, great question. Love the history, and thank you again for all that you and Jill do. So currently, Habitat, again, this has happened a couple of times since I've been here. For whatever reason, a family needs to move, new job out of state, or it's just, just something happens. Each project, Habitat will typically have like a 40-year period where we would have the first right of refusal to, in essence, if a family moves out, they would come, Habitat would have the chance to move another family in under our affordable housing finance model. After that, it is, I think, to my knowledge, it would probably be a mark, back into the market after that 40 years. And so, that's a really good point, that like how to best maintain affordability even beyond that is a question that, especially because, we're Habitat LA is 33 years old now. So, as our homes, over the next decade or two, some of the first homes that we build are going to cross that, 40-year mark. And so that's, I think it's a question that we'll have to, take a look at. Are there things that we can do moving forward to help sustain that affordable housing stock, so that all of the, the decades that have gone into building this home so far, that doesn't go waste. But yeah, for now, I know that, we have that kind of 30 to 40-year first right of refusal process in place. Then after that, I think it's market at the moment. So. Yeah.
Follow-up question. Have you thought about putting Habitat homes into a community land trust to ensure that they're permanently affordable?
Yeah.
I think Jill has raised that question with you.
Okay.
But we're really, as from a biblical standpoint, we really support community land trusts, because the homes are owned by the homeowner, but the land is owned by the trust. And then there's usually a some kind of resale formula that the home buyer agrees to make sure that it remains permanently affordable. So if they buy it, say 50% below market rate, they sell it at approximately that amount. They still get the equity of all the mortgage payments they've made, but they can't have a windfall when they sell the house. And but of course, for the first 40 years, it sounds like you're covered by the way you've structured it. But I mean, it's another model, not just for Habitat, I think, but for all affordable housing. would be
Absolutely.
ideally if it could be put into a community land trust
Yeah.
to ensure its affordability.
It's interesting that you brought that up, Anthony. That is something we're educating ourselves a bit on right now. And maybe we can, speak a little bit more offline just to, I'm personally just trying to understand a bit more, how the community land trust model works. I think not only for future projects, but I know we are having more conversations with, faith communities, congregations that are looking to build housing on their properties. And community land trust, ground lease models are those that make a lot of sense for our churches and our faith partners to consider when developing homes. And so I think it's definitely something we're taking a look at, and yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels, and would love to maybe talk a little bit more offline about how we can start to make that more of a reality, maybe.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, Steve will be the next one, but can I just come in on a second? I don't quite understand. If one of the theories is to build generational wealth and people can't sell it at the market rate for 40 years, how are you building generational wealth? I don't quite understand. There seems a contradiction here. I'm sorry, Steve, I'm just trying to understand it.
No, it's a good question, Rose. So the families, they pay back a mortgage to Habitat, and so each month they're making a mortgage payment, but that's equity, and so they're going from paying rent every month, not being able to keep any of that funding for the next generation, to over the course of that 30-year mortgage, building up a couple $100,000 in equity that can be passed on to their kids through the home, or if the kids decide to sell or whatever, they would have that income coming in. And so it's through those monthly mortgage payment that equity is built, that wouldn't exist if they were just continuing to rent their entire lives.
Right,
if
thank
that
you.
makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt that.
No, not at all. It was a very good question. So, Chris, as you can tell, we view these Friday forums as a two-way street. We're an advocacy organization. We advance our own sense of equality and justice. And I think you've heard today, beginning with Sophia, Richard, Anthony, and others, I think what we're passing along, and hope you're the vehicle to pass on to Erin and your board of directors, this sense that there may be new models and expanded models of housing that are not necessarily linked or tied to privatization and private ownership, but are a blended model that allows to build generational wealth, but in a context that recognizes the need for housing today. And what I'm getting at is rental support and condo support, and you start to talk about larger operations, multi-unit operations. Dick Bunce talked about throwing, are you ready to throw single family homes over the cliff? But I probably would imagine Habitat would want to think of it more as a menu, a blended menu of a variety of models, and that we as a society need to find models. I think there probably will always be single family ownership in America, but the kind of work that Anthony's doing, where you blend that single family ownership with a community land trust, or you find other models to spread your funding. I mean, you have helped 1,200 families. You mentioned that's the LA experience. I did the math. That's about 48 families a year over the time, if my math is good. But and we cannot put the entire housing crisis on Habitat's shoulders. It's extraordinary that a private organization is doing this work. So I think nothing you're hearing today is meant to undermine that. But I think for our little time with you today, we are trying to push a sense of looking to other models of how could you help 1,000 renters who need to move from houselessness and then into sustainable housing. And then eventually, if ownership is in the cards for them. So I've used a lot of phrases and words here, but I'm trying to embrace, and I love your idea that offline you'll talk to Anthony about community land trust. And I sense you personally are a very curious person and a very flexible person. And over the time, you are learning so much about this, and I hope your board is learning that. So all I'm doing is lifting up what you've heard today as a cry to build beyond a single model of home ownership to eventually address even more of this housing crisis that we face.
Steve, thank you. And I'm getting inspired just, hear from everybody from the group, and thank you for kind of bringing that all together. But yeah, I think we've been very blessed. We've been able to do a lot, but yeah, we're just the tip of the iceberg. And I think, I know Aaron and the board's vision, for instance, one thing, like right now, as you mentioned, new homes, we've been averaging, a few a year for the last 30 years, but by 2033, the goal is to be able to do 100 new homes a year, at least, somewhere in Los Angeles, in addition to our home repairs and other efforts. And so I know that the vision wants to keep growing and getting even bigger and more impactful. And yeah, I think, the pandemic, as it did for so many of us, just gave us a chance to kind of step back and reassess and, how can we do what we're doing even better? And I think, conversations like this really help to make an impact on that trajectory and where we go, so that, yeah, we ultimately get to all of our goals, which is let's build a city where everybody has a decent and affordable place to live.
Thank you. Carol Francis.
I've always been a renter. I've never owned anything. I grew up in a home that my parents owned, but since then I've been a renter. So I'm glad that people are bringing in that. And I just watched this video the other night about an organization in Kansas that's dealing with advocating for rent control. And do you see this as something that you see organizations that you work with in LA that advocate? People not becoming homeless because they were able to force rents to not increase.
Yeah, it's a great question, Carol Francis. Thank you for that. I think, a couple thoughts. Obviously, yeah, those that are unhoused in our city right now, we at Habitat, just the organizations that are directly working with, helping take them from, the streets into, some sort of temporary shelter and ultimately into transitional housing, we think is great. I think, from a Habitat perspective, we feel, and we have had, several cases over the, where families, because they're renting, they're always the rent could go up in any month. And what we really think of at Habitat is that when they move into a Habitat home, they don't have to worry about that, anymore, because they own it. They have that very stable monthly mortgage payment that's going in. And so if they have a health crisis or, something else comes up, and they don't have to worry about a massive rent increase going up, as well, that could, put them out, on the streets or unhoused. There's a woman, one of the women, the very first photo I showed of those 10 families that moved into Long Beach. One was for a single woman who, it could have been any of us. She and her husband and their 2 kids, going along, getting in school, but her husband was a truck driver, tragically lost his life in an accident driving home one night. And, Terry was raising her kids and, had to ask other family members to take them in. And she herself ended up, just having a couple things happen, and she ended up having to, sleep in her car for a year and a half, and then got connected with Habitat at her church, came and picked up some information and applied, and had gotten through school and had, everything came together, and now she's in, a Habitat home in Long Beach. So I feel like, stories like that, that Habitat does, maybe it's not as, a direct role like Path or some of the other amazing, organizations here in the city that work, directly with those that are unhoused. But we do indirectly, I think, play a role in helping those that are renting have a path to ownership that ultimately, keeps them, away from being unhoused as well. Sorry, a bit all over the place, but hope some of that made sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Anthony, is your hand still up, or did you just not take it down?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I'm thinking of ADUs, and they actually, I'll tell you my dream policy, which I'd love to see, which is highly subsidized ADUs for low-income homeowners, especially those at risk of losing their home or pricing out and moving out of a city because they can't afford the mortgage payments and the upkeep on the house. And my dream policy is for them to have subsidized ADUs that would be covenanted as affordable, so that you essentially are preserving, someone to stay in their home as low income, and providing an opportunity for someone who's low income to rent. Has Habitat thought about ADUs at all in its work?
Yeah, we are working on our 3rd ADU right now, actually. First one was we have a partnership with Delta Airlines. They collect their soda cans on all their flights and use those funds to sponsor Habitat homes around the country. And so they did 2 homes one year. The first was just a regular Habitat home for one family, but a second was an ADU right next door to that home for a second family. And so that was a great model there. The second ADU we built was for our Catholic coalition. We have an active coalition of about 15 to 20 different Catholic communities that come together every year. They brought our attention to a family in Carson who's was a dad and his, I think, 4 or 5 kids. They had tragically lost their mom to cancer, and their home was just really run down and very, very small, and they just could not function in it anymore. And so we were able to build an ADU in their backyard that gave them a little bit more space. So we did that for them. And then currently we're working with a church in Bellflower to build our first I think this is our first home build on any church property today. And we're hoping to change that considerably in the years ahead. But building an ADU in partnership with the church so that the church can have a more affordable dwelling for I believe they're going to use it for one of like the pastors so that they can stay in Bellflower and not have to move outside the city. So we've started. I really like your idea, Anthony, of low income subsidized ADU program moving forward. But yeah, we are off and going on utilizing ADU builds and hopefully even more to come in the years ahead.
Interesting. We're running out of time now, but Dick Bunce, I see you've got your hand up again.
I'll make it real quick. When I was on the planning commission, the ADU idea came forward, and I thought, oh, this is pie in the sky. This isn't going to go over, and it's been a huge success. It's just been terrific. But what about tiny house compounds? And it's a big question in the last minute here. But do you have what is your sense of that?
Yeah, should have probably mentioned earlier. So Habitat, we have our traditional model, which is, as you can see, starting to expand a bit. Several years ago too, we formed a CHODO in addition that's connected directly to Habitat LA called Partnership Housing, and Daryl, who's our community development VP, also helps lead Partnership Housing. He that has allowed us to have some of these conversations, tiny homes being in particular one of them, but it also having the CHODO helped Habitat move from get kind of the single family affordable housing model into the larger developments, the mixed income development world. And so much more to say, but yeah, the CHODO has definitely opened our realm of possibilities up to at least start having some conversations about many different types of projects, tiny homes being one of them. I know we've met with some of our faith-based partners about that, and so in conversations, nothing official yet, but it's certainly something that the CHODO could make possible down the road.
Please define CHODO.
Basically, a tiny house in the backyard.
Right.
Well,
I
they're
think
actually
they're
actually
more
a
than
little
a
bit
tiny
bigger.
house.
They're a little
Community,
bit bigger.
yeah.
They're 800 square feet, anywhere from
Yeah.
400 to 800 square feet.
Yeah.
It's
With
a lot.
bathrooms, kitchen, full. They're little. They're little like they're wonderful.
Yeah, the one in Bellflower, I think, is about 800 square feet that we're working on. So yeah, and they're very nice, and it's a good. Steve, Community Housing Development Organization.
Okay.
Thank you.
CHDO, yeah. I always think there's a second O in the middle, which throws me off, but then I remember it's just CHDO. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's time, I know, but the tiny homes, they don't have any kitchen or bathroom or anything. They're just a little room, basically, unless we're talking something different that can just about house two people. Everything else is single in the development. I mean, it's very, very different. But anyway, that's probably don't have time to go into that now. We've got like 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'll just say quickly, we helped guide a church in South Los Angeles. The county had given them about, I want to say about 20 different tiny homes to put on their church parking lot to help unhoused college students. And part of that, was, yes, the homes, but then you got to figure out, the restroom situation. We offered a little bit of guidance to help them work with the county to get that all set up. So
right,
which is another area that we can help with. So yeah.
Well, thank you. That was really, really good. I mean, a lot of us, as you gathered, are pretty involved in housing in LA, so it was great to have another angle on it and learn so much more. And
well,
really
Rose, thank you. And I really mean it. And I'll just say quick, I really hope this is just the beginning of the conversation today. I'm grateful for each of you being on here and all of the work that you do. And just know we would love to have your voice, your passion, continue to be involved in some way with Habitat's mission moving forward. And I know we can continue to do even more good together.